Video essays dominate the world of online media creation today, from large corporations to individuals using journalistic skills to create essays in a video format. You remember essays, those things that we had to do a million of in grade school on topics that we didn't really care about? The amount of video essays that can be found on YouTube alone is astounding and sometimes overwhelming. And while studies have been done on the subject, even Wikipedia takes its definition from an article entitled, "What is a video essay? Creators grapple with a definition." I love this article for a couple reasons. Number one being that it literally starts with a line, "Perhaps video essays are like pornography, in that, as the saying goes, you know it when you see it. And if that ain't a good way to put it." For another, it defines video essays as a piece of video content that, much like a written essay, advances an argument, which is a good definition that became Wikipedia's definition because, as we all know, creating definitions on Wikipedia really isn't as simple as scrolling to the 6th link on Google. The overall conclusion from that article is essentially that there isn't a good way to define video essays. A lot of it focuses not on traditional literary essays translated directly to screen like this one, but rather on re-edited films, a form of video that I usually see titled as tribute or even just compilation. But according to the article, that too is a video essay. Other essayists in the article seem to agree with my initial opinion, like Ariel Bernstein, who said, "The video essays I've worked on are thesis-driven, and images are used along with text in order to persuade the viewer to read and interpret these images in a certain way." But I'm inclined to think that the broader definition is more accurate. From the narrow definition of a literary essay, it could theoretically be a collection of quotes from a book, an analytical account, or just a simple summary. So let's talk a little bit about literary essays. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as an analytical or interpretive literary composition usually dealing with its subject from a limited or personal point of view. So if we just plucked out the word literary and put in video, we would have an analytical or interpretive video composition usually dealing with its subject from a limited or personal point of view. But that does still leave things very open. Video composition without the specification of use of a narrator, use of a prepared script, etc. leaves things very open and does kind of validate that a simple fan edit could be a video essay. Because while it might not be exactly what the author meant, you could argue that by compiling moments from a movie together, you're creating a more limited perspective from which someone views the movie, which may make it easier for them to glean exactly what you gleaned from your initial viewing. For example, if I took the scenes from Jojo Rabbit where he's speaking with his imaginary Hitler, speaking to his commanding officers, being at the Nazi camp, and speaking to his best friend on the streets, you might just assume that it's a satire making fun of Nazi Germany's culture. However, if you single out all the parts of Rosie speaking with her son and with Elsa, you might assume that it's more of a story of motherhood and caring for other people. Through some quick research, I came across this book, A Handbook to Literature. It lays out traditional subclassifications of literary essays being formal and informal. They're pretty self-explanatory. Formal essays have serious purpose, logical organization, and length, and an informal essay has the personal element, humor, graceful style, rambling structure, unconventionality, or novelty of theme. Now, if you're familiar with video essays on YouTube, you know a lot of them tend to lean informal. There's less structure, more rambling, they tend to incorporate a lot of jokes, but they still maintain a flow and make a point. Well, the good ones do. If I were to guess, it's probably more a result of the medium than anything. It's harder than ever to keep people focused today, even in a visual medium. Video of a train coming at a screen doesn't exactly sell tickets anymore. That's why in filmmaking, everyone on the line of production works to keep people engaged. However, when it comes to video essays, that tends to just be one person. That leads us to the next clarification we need for video essays. In the first article that I referenced, V. Renee from No Film School begged the question, what defines a video essay and when does it become its own film? Which is a fantastic question because, as per usual, Wikipedia just doesn't have the answer. Under their essay article, they have a section for non-literary types. One of these types is the film or cinematic essay, which consists of the evolution of a theme or an idea rather than a plot per se, or the film literally being a cinematic accompaniment to a narrator reading an essay. However, Wikipedia refers to documentaries, like Super Size Me or Michael Moore documentaries, which could lead you to the conclusion that a video essay is to a documentary as a short film is to a feature, right? Now that does create a narrower definition than I'd like. If you saw my introduction video, you saw me give a long speech about not putting walls up on individual content creators because it goes against the nature of online media creation. And while I did use that for a bit of a joke, I do stand by it. So with that in mind, I'm going to create my own definition. And I think to do that, I'm going to go back to the beginning with Filmmaker Magazine's definition, which states that video essays are much like pornography in that... Wait, no, that's the wrong one. It's that video essays are a piece of video content that advances an argument. With all that I've laid out, that does beg some questions. One of the big ones being, what differentiates a video essay from a documentary? From what I've gathered, I would argue that a video essay does not follow a narrative structure. That doesn't mean no structure, just not structure like a narrative movie might. If you've ever worked on a documentary or learned about their production, you know that it tends to follow a similar narrative structure to that of a fictional film. A documentary is not someone standing in front of a camera reading something they wrote. It could be, but it probably still follows a narrative structure of some sort. There may be a theme or a lesson, but there's not necessarily a thesis. A documentary is footage and interviews that are either filmed in a particular order to give it narrative structure, or are cut together afterwards, like Super Size Me or like a behind-the-scenes documentary. Now, as I said in the introduction video, I'm going to be making 3 essays in various genres, which means that right now I need to define some genres under what I've just created as my definition. Obviously, they can't fall under the genres that narrative filmmaking uses because, like we established, they don't tell stories that way. I was going to use Wikipedia's grocery list of essay types, but they include the cop-out other logical structures section, and also most of these are just different types of argumentative essays. So instead I'm using this masterclass article, Writing 101, The 8 Common Types of Essays. It's written by David Sedaris, a New York Times bestselling author, and actually good source instead of me thinking I'm really clever because I found out that Wikipedia has a references section. If I were to guess, based on my own experience taking in content on YouTube, which is an important distinction because most of us have had YouTube accounts for years, so we probably have very different recommended videos. 3 most common forms of video essays are expository, argumentative, and critical analysis. I would also argue that most expository essays are very close to being analytical, the difference being that analytical essays offer some criticisms to the thing that they're explaining. I just think most video essayists can't really help but offer some of their own personal criticisms, which is probably a good thing. But the important part of video essays is the video format, right? So what's unique in a visual medium to each of these genres? Well, obviously it can vary, but I'll use 3 existing channels that I follow as examples. These being Nakey Jakey, Every Frame a Painting, and Pop Culture Detective, for expository, argumentative, and critical analysis respectively. While Jakey is more widely seen as a commentary YouTuber, I think that his script format does more reflect what an argumentative essay is. And fun fact that was not in this script, just this week on the Gus and Eddie podcast, Nakey Jakey's friend, Eddie Burback, who does very similar videos to him, said himself that the videos he makes are more or less just argumentative essays. So that was very nice to hear the week that I'm shooting this, so thanks, Eddie. The other 2 more fit into what you would consider a classic video essay. They use lots of graphics and lots of existing cinematography to benefit what they're talking about. The big difference is in their expanded use of it, and for specificity's sake, I'll use Pop Culture Detective's essay on the Shawshank Redemption and Every Frame a Painting's The Marvel Symphonic Universe. Pop Culture Detective uses footage and graphics that not only refer to the exact thing that he's referring to, but also media outside of it that helps build context for what he's talking about. It also has a direct thesis laid out in the titles, this one being How the Shawshank Redemption Humanizes Prisoners. But as he's tackling this thesis, he also just pulls apart the film to give us the context for what he's trying to argue.
The prison industrial complex is characterized by a callous disregard for human rights and human dignity. It's also big business.
Every Frame a Painting, on the other hand, uses his research and his own knowledge to make a point in his essays. He still uses graphics and cinematography from the original essays, but he also uses the entire scenes like you would maybe a quote from a book. In the specific essay I referred to, he's specifically arguing that the MCU's music is just boring. And fun fact, apparently the composer of Thor Ragnarok saw that essay and it inspired him to make a more compelling soundtrack for the movie, and it actually shows. And that's it. To me, that's what defines video essays. But I'm not exactly done. Over the course of the semester, or if your brain doesn't work like a college student's until May, I'm going to be producing a series of video essays on various topics. 3 in the genres I just laid out, and 1 final essay on what my process was like and what my experience was like making these essays. I'll also just talk about if I've changed my mind on anything, if anything differentiates, or if I've gotten any of the genres wrong. I'm also going to try to do process videos for each of these, but I can't promise those are going to be super in-depth. In fact, I'm thinking at this point I might just vlog them and maybe get some screen cap footage of what my editing software looks like, which, if you're a professional editor, it's just messy. It's going to be messy. I'm not that good at it. So if that's something that interests you, consider subscribing, ringing the bell so that you get notifications, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.